Good. Call to order the April 26th Oregon City Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting. Introductions, starting with Sean.
Sean Datchler.
Mike Mitchell.
Lisa Novak.
Doug Neely.
Karen Morey.
Roger Fowler-Tice.
Phil Lewis.
Pete Walter.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, approval of the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the draft minutes?
Yes.
Comments, changes, objections?
I'll move to approve it. I'll have a question afterwards.
Second. I'll second.
Okay. Motion approved.
And
He had a question.
and
Oh, I'm sorry, Doug, what was your question?
Well, the minutes refer to the owner of the Blue Heron site, perhaps having his fees and taxes paid within 30 days. This is within 30 days.
that is correct, and I'm not sure if I think the information that we received was around within around 30 days.
That's
so
what it
it's
says.
a little bit more flexible. And I have not heard an update on that recently, but I know that was his intent.
One of these never-ending stories.
Hopefully not.
Anything else?
Do we have a vote? We had a first and a second. I don't know if we had a.
Aye, yeah.
Yeah.
Aye, sorry.
Unanimous. All right. Minutes of the March 22nd, 2018 PAC minutes have been approved. Item 4 on the agenda, any citizen comments or issues and items not on the agenda?
Excellent.
No? All right. Item 5 on the agenda, 5A. Metro Parks and Nature Planning, Newell Creek Canyon. Mr. Rod Wozniak? Thank you.
Good evening, committee members. My name is Rod Wozniak. I am the planning manager with Metro's Parks and Nature Department. I'm here tonight to share a brief background about Newell Creek Canyon. This is, however, actually the first time I've ever spoken about Newell Creek. The project manager, Tannen Prince, has a newborn that he's caring for this evening, and I've agreed to fill in for him. So, Newell Creek Canyon is located on the southeastern edge of Oregon City, and it's a 235-acre canyon with high-quality cedar forests, tracts of upland deciduous forest, and small streams centered around Newell Creek. It truly is one of Metro's special sites within our portfolio. It provides a unique opportunity for within the Oregon City limits to protect water quality, preserve urban open space and fish and wildlife habitat, as well as create an opportunity for local and regional residents to connect with nature. Next slide, please.
Oh, you have the clicker on here.
Oh, yeah, I could do it myself.
Oh.
Since these properties were purchased and put into public ownership, however, we've experienced some challenges with maintaining the habitat and protecting water quality as a result of illegal camping. In contrast to the Newell Creek Canyon's beauty, this unauthorized use of property has resulted in litter, dumping, and informal trails, which have degraded the resource and proved harmful to wildlife habitat and water quality. The site was identified early in the discussions around the 2013 operating levy, which thankfully the region's voters approved, and the subsequent 2016 levy, which identified and granted funding to the effort to plan, design, and construct improvements in the canyon. One of the goals of the access plan was to attract a steady flow of visitors, and hereby doing so would help discourage illegal camping and displace this use. However, we have to do this thoughtfully with connections with the local residents around the sites, as well as aligning with our conservation goals for the property. Beginning in April of 2014, we held 4 public meetings over the span of a little over a year and a half. And we had great attendance at each of these, a lot of great conversations. And some of the top activities, that the community and stakeholders identified that they wanted to experience in the canyon were hiking, picnicking, and off-road cycling. The use in Newell Creek Canyon centers around 3 primary uses. The day use, or the blue area at the top, is where you would find the parking and trailhead, restroom facilities, interpretive opportunities, and then the trail, which would then work its way through the orange zone, would be the primary trail network, followed by the green zone, which is largely designated as the conservation area, or larger tracts which provide wildlife that habitat that they're searching as well. I'll zoom in a little bit more on the day use area that was the result of the master plan and further design development. The primary access for people would be off of Warner Milne Road. And as they enter, there would be a automatic gated entrance there. Entering into the parking lot, I think we're looking at roughly 24 parking stalls. Yeah, so the visitor would park their car there if they decided to arrive by that mode of transportation, and then to work their way east into the site. Having the opportunity to use a restroom and then get oriented to the site with the kiosk there designated as number 2, and then entering into the formal trail network. The only opportunity, unfortunately, to provide a truly inclusive, accessible park experience would be on this upper canyon rim, however. That's the only area in the project that has grades that would facilitate people in wheelchairs or those that may be less abled. So we would have a small trail loop where they could approach the canyon rim, look out over the edge. There's overlook is proposed. And then for those that want to go deeper into the canyon, the trail location there at number 9 would send you into deeper into the canyon. The area in the center of the upper bench would be restored into primarily a large meadow, and that location would also provide a future opportunity for additional site features such as a natural play area, covered picnic tables, and possibly an overlook shelter.
Can I ask a question there?
Sure.
Your tone on this is a little different than I recall from previous ones. You said it could have like a nature play area. I thought that was in the plan and it was, scheduled for one of the phases.
It is.
Okay.
It is. I'm sorry. When funding becomes available.
Gotcha.
I think our current budget, we're hoping to do the trailhead, parking, restrooms, some of the street connectivity areas there off of Otter and Beaver Lane, and then the trail system. I wish we had money for everything, but those are still in the master plan. I just don't think we'll be able to do it as a result of first phase.
I was just catching the tone and maybe misinterpreting.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I was
No,
thinking
sorry.
like it was a possibility rather than an active piece of the plan.
It's an active piece of the plan, yes. Thank you for catching that. The trail network would consist of roughly 3.5 miles of trail. 1 mile would be designated as hiking only, and that's shown in yellow. 1 mile would be designated as off-road cycling only, and that's highlighted in blue. And then there would be additional 1.5 miles of trail that would be shared use between hikers and cyclists. That's shown in pink. The other significant elements that would be built as a result of the trail network would be bridges and overlooks, and those are shown with the yellow, bright yellow circles.
Just, I guess a comment. Sure. Because I know this plan is all well set. The hiking trail itself looks like it has a loop, but the little piece of that spaghetti there isn't hooking in to another part. What I'm talking about here is right up there. Now, is that really intended to hook into the?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
just a graphical,
Okay.
it's just, yeah, I think graphically it's just not represented, but
And
the
the
intention would be.
multi-use trail there that is for both, for every, I guess,
In paint.
everybody.
Mhm.
It goes to the overlook, but it doesn't look like you can really loop around it unless you're on a bike or something.
I think that's correct, yes.
The one at the top says secondary entry, that actually goes into Gale's addition. There's housing there
It's
where that
correct.
orange star is.
Correct, at the top of the graphic,
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
They show that in the previous ones going into
Okay.
Gills Road.
That's a nice idea.
Okay. Yeah, that would be a neighborhood connection. We wouldn't provide a formal trailhead with parking or restroom or any of that. We would provide a entry kiosk with wayfinding and regulatory signs. Yes.
Yeah, Rod, is this still kind of conceptual, or is this what's going to get built?
This is a conceptual graphic that has been further refined through field layout and consulting with a professional trail designer, geotechnical engineers, landscape architects. Those have progressed into a set of construction documents, which are approximately at 90% level right now.
Okay.
I think this just is the easiest graphic to read,
Yeah.
if you will.
The reason I'm asked, and I struggled a little bit with the idea of a multi-use trail, but from listening to people who know more about that than I do, I'm convinced that it'll work. But as I look at this, if I'm a hiker and I leave the day use area, I'm on a lot of mixed use trail before I get to a hiking only trail. So I'm wondering why, just as you come out on the purple trail from the day use area, you're very close there, parallel to another part of the hiking trail loop. Why is there not a little spur there for hikers to get over to the exclusively hiking trail instead of having to go all the way down? Is that a topography thing, or do you know?
That would be my guess. If Tannen would here, he probably could speak to that precisely. My guess is that trail is further down into the canyon, the yellow trail.
Okay.
We try to build with the contours
Sure.
rather than fall line trails. They're just not sustainable. But I get your point, yeah.
That's a great question. I was wondering if maybe we can even have a follow-up answer to that.
Sure,
I'd be very curious.
I can get back with,
Through email.
yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. In an attempt to have both user groups be able to use this successfully, we would use a number of different methods, signs, trail design features themselves, and approaches to the intersections, as well as adaptive management to, again, have those two user groups meld nicely. We're proposing that the off-road cycling combined with the multi-use on their uphill ascent on the climb, so that they don't have speed that creates a conflict with that other user. So directionality will be important for that. And the professional trail consultant has been helping us think about how we would approach that from a trail perspective and still be able to slow the user down so that they can understand what's expected and navigate those situations.
You have you have a stream indicated down, the lower part down up in the middle, down into Newell Creek. A lot of these streams are highly incised because they serve the stormwater
Yeah.
purposes of the city, because it's an old neighborhood and they didn't really have much in the way of detention ponds. Is that the case on this particular stream, or do you know? Is it heavily incised, and is there anything that can be done in terms of the flow, if it is?
I wish another one of my esteemed professional colleagues, Brian Vaughn, was here. He's our natural
Yeah.
resource scientist for the site. He would know better. I've been on the site several times. I have seen where the stream seems to be incised. I know that we're trying to replant in through here, slow that water down as it comes onto the site. I know that where it enters in a stream channel, it's a little bit more difficult to regulate that flow, but I know he's actively engaged with restoration of the site and has a strong affinity for fish and trying to protect them and give them their greatest opportunities for a quality existence.
If I could
Sure.
add, yeah, the conservation plan that's associated with the site plan is very detailed, and it has a lot of information about that approach. To share that with you as part of the narrative.
Okay, good to know. I have a question. I see that there are a lot of, many surrounding homes and residences. Are there any concerns about, people making their own path to the trails and causing environmental harm to the environment in that regard? People finding shortcuts. I imagine that that's inevitable, but are there any concerns about that, or?
It's often a concern. We hope that providing safe, formalized trails that are quality experiences, that those neighbors will decide to enter at a formal trailhead. I think the grades in here are also not very favorable. It's quite steep once you enter into the site. It will, over the course of the years, we'll learn more for sure.
Yeah.
There have been situations where we've had to react to social trails after they've developed, but we've found that by at least having a formal trail system like this, we're able to provide an opportunity for people to safely move through the area, and we can choreograph that more and minimize our impacts on the resource. But it's, time will tell as well. And we'll probably have to use some signs, some fencing if that situation occurs.
I don't know if you have a mouse. If the mouse is available, you probably can scale in on it. The first map you showed where you had the overlook, I guess the phase one of it, what area is that? If you go back, God, that's good, but how does that compare to what you have in your other map? Can you?
So, this area, it's the day use area.
Yeah.
That overlook symbol where there's the icon of the person looking at the, would probably be roughly about number 8 at the center of the graphic on the right side. That's probably that overlook location.
Okay.
But this plan view graphic here is a further refinement of the master plan, which reflects surveyed topographic information and more real world information or on the ground information than we had when we did that plan graphic or conceptual graphic. Did I get your question?
More or less.
Okay.
And Rod, if you need, or if you'd like to, I can pull up the ArcGIS system on the screen, and if you're interested to show more of the topographical.
Yeah, there's a lot of contours that are stacked up in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just curious if many of you have had a chance to take a tour into I know you have, Doug. Have any of the others?
I have not.
I wonder if we could arrange that. Well, I know we could arrange that. I wonder what a nice sunny day would be that we could make that happen.
I would like that.
That'd be interesting.
I actually have not visited the trail site. I've been in other parts of Mill Creek Canyon, but not really there.
Okay. Let's arrange that.
Yeah, I would love to.
We could do it
That would be great.
with the Natural Resources Committee.
Yeah, I can set something up. Would you be the best point of contact, or should I work with?
Yeah, we can work through me on that.
Okay, great.
I want to come in from that end.
So this graphic represents our timeline. After roughly a 2-year planning after Metro Council adopted the master plan in 2016. And since that time, we've been working with Oregon City staff to obtain land use approval so that we can move forward with construction. There was a lot of effort that went into that land use application and subsequent conversations. There was a lot of geotechnical data that needed to be understood because of the slides and soil types in the canyon. We looked a lot at utilities, street connectivity, et cetera. Took a little longer than we were expecting initially, but we submitted the land use application in March of 2017, and it was deemed officially complete in that August. And then following discussions and negotiations back and forth with city planners, we received the conditions of approval late last month, and we've been working with our landscape architect and engineer to incorporate those conditions into our construction documents, which we hope are completed by this summer, and then we'll submit those for development permits. And then once we have our development permits in hand, we'll enter into our public bidding phase to identify contractors. What we want to do with this project is we want to break it into 2 separate contracts. One would be for the upper bench or the formal trailhead, where we can get a grading and excavation contractor familiar with pavements and utilities and stormwater. And then we'll approach a qualified trail builder that has experience building soft surface trails in natural areas, such that we can get someone that has the right equipment and the right experience so that it can leave a light footprint on that area. We'll also have to bring in some pretty sizable bridges to span some of those drainages. So that'll be some pretty nuanced work. Having said that, we hope to bid that late fall and into the winter so that those contractors have a chance to bid competitively and secure work for that next season. We hope to begin in May and then have an opening in the fall of 2019. That was pretty much what I had to share. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm more than welcome to field questions as long as you have them.
Questions?
I've got a couple.
You show the trail hooking in there into one of the neighborhoods. I can't remember if that's Mill Crest or Mill Ridge, but is that the only neighborhood that you actually physically hook the trail into?
Is that the one at the top of the graphic? I'm sorry, I'm not that familiar. Yes. I know we have a small connection down at the south as well. I think that's under some utility right-of-way. But the primary neighborhood connection would be to the north.
Okay.
At the top of the graphic. Yeah, sure.
2 questions, excuse me, on the conditions that you said were brought up. Were any of those, were those mostly technical jargon based, or were any of those things that change what the public has already seen in the approved plans, like what we've seen?
You might help me, Pete, a little bit.
Yeah,
I think there was some further understandings and refinements around how we would look at the connections at Otter and Beaver Lane.
Yeah, I think the discussion with respect to Gales Lane was that you know, that will be a closed gate.
Right.
And the principal access is off Fox. And
Correct.
Then, but there would be pedestrian access at
Gales. But other than that, I don't believe any of the conditions that were put on there, like you said, are mostly technical and have to do with stormwater and street layout and how things are paved, because the parking lot is going to be pervious pavement and that sort of thing. So there'll be some maintenance obligations on the part of Metro to keep that pervious pavement in good shape. So yeah, you're right. It's mostly technical stuff. And it's a phased project too. So the approval that the city issued is pretty much dealing with the day use area. And we expect that most of the decisions with respect to the larger canyon and the conservation and trail work, which while they've been preliminarily approved here, the construction document phase that will be submitted, there may be some refinement there. In terms of the natural resource overlay district that the city regulates, there's certain types of trails like soft surface trails that are exempt and can be placed within fairly close proximity to some of the wetlands and streams to allow interpretation. And then trails that are wider than that are considered non-exempt. But I believe the overall net impact that is being mitigated is a very small area. It's about 2,000 square feet of impact, and then Metro's going to be doing tons and tons of replanting and enhancement just because of the current state of some of the vegetation and other things in there. So they're more than mitigating for any impact that they have. It's an enhancement project, yeah.
I always had the impression that the parking area we're talking about, that the cemetery property was immediately adjacent to it. It doesn't appear to be in this picture. I guess
as you pan out, you can see where the cemetery is on that wider view. So
The other side of the black line.
right.
Well, where is it?
Up here.
Just to the
Oh,
top
I
of
see.
the.
Okay,
Yep.
Yeah.
okay,
So Scattering Canyon's a little
Okay.
bit north of there, and
right.
that butts up against Metro property for sure.
My second question relates more to the budget. Since I don't see the numbers, I'm having to make some assumptions in my mind. And I'm not speaking on behalf of this group, but I would say there was general consensus the last time I brought this up to the Metro person that I'm a huge advocate for getting the nature play elements in phase one. I believe from a budget standpoint, it's a very minor piece, given the size of this entire project. And I think it's important for us to look at all age groups. And so from my standpoint on opening day, I want the 5-year-old to enjoy it just as much as the 30-year-old on a mountain bike and the 60-year-old on, hiking or whatever. And I'm not trying to be age discriminatory there, but more conscious of the smaller people too, and reasons to bring their families to that trailhead park area and not even necessarily going down in the canyon. So do you foresee that element as such a significant cost that it needs to be moved into phase two, or can some small things be shifted?
It's a good question. There is a lot of nuance there. The challenge with play areas is somewhat dependent on what that play area is and what that experience is. If a child's feet leaves the ground with that play experience, you immediately have to put in safe fall surfacing, and then you have to regularly maintain and monitor and make sure you've addressed any hazards. There's some significant costs with ongoing operations and maintenance around that. If we provide a play experience where kids' feet are on the ground and maybe they're playing collaboratively with sand and water or natural materials, that's less maintenance. And I think there's more opportunities to do something like that. Or maybe it's an off-trail play where we mow a trail through the meadow and have like a hopping log, which wouldn't necessarily be called a play area, but it's a playful feature. The intent there is a little different. So the maintenance and safety requirements are different.
Totally understand.
We have some experience with nature-based play and have been involved with groups through funding measures and nature and neighborhood grants where we've worked closely with them and have good experience. And I'm hoping that we can find some playful elements to put into the trailhead in this upper area. Whether it's a formal play area within a boundary, that is probably going to take a lot more conversations with our operations director. But I get your point. We'll see what we can do.
Great, thank you, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And that's all I can ask for is take that back, and even maybe there's some collaborative work with the city on something like that. And I know we've even had those same challenges from a maintenance standpoint, and it kind of defeats the purpose of nature play, but we've put in rubberized elements to help some of those
Yeah.
problems.
I'm building an inclusive, all-access, nature-based play area at Oxbow Park. And to provide a safe fall surface that's accessible, I'm putting in basically synthetic grass, which you wouldn't really think of as a nature-based play, but it allows kids of all abilities to then interact with. We're going to have sand and water play tables so that they can roll up under and experience that. So.
The other perspective I'm coming from, and Metro is a huge organization that does a lot of things in a lot of areas, but for us, Oregon City residents, this is really a neighborhood park.
Correct.
And so that's the angle I'm coming from, is there's a lot of little kids and families in those areas that would walk to that park to recreate, as opposed to crossing Malala Avenue, which is hard. And so the sooner we can provide that opportunity for them through collaboration, through Metro's shifting priorities, that's a good thing. It's a win for those houses along there. So.
And I'll have to chuckle a little bit on a bit of the other side. I've had some concerns, and other people have voiced concerns about noise going into the cemetery, especially if there's services ongoing. So the gleeful children, it looks like, are actually, you've created some good separation, and if your landscaping plan does some wonderful buffering. So I think you're going to be a really good neighbor.
That's our intent.
Unless too many of Sean's chuckling
Those
children
edges
show
will
up.
be important for us. We have a lot of opportunities to provide pollinator habitats in there, screening. Yeah.
Could you draw the mason bees out of the cemetery into your park?
Are they a challenge in the cemetery?
There's several of them.
Ground nest?
Attract them.
I'd like to come to the hammerheads.
Sure.
Are they intended to be just places for cars to turn around, or will they be able to park there?
Our intention would be that they would simply turn around there.
Okay.
Primarily emergency vehicles, garbage trucks, things like that. Yeah, we would sign that very well.
Okay.
It's not intended for parking.
Okay.
Yeah, the hammerheads are conditioned as well, so they're going to stay, but they need to meet Clackamas Fire District standards. And they would be marked no parking. And there would be also signs that say that is the end of the road.
So there wouldn't be any ingress into the, like Otter Lane or Beaver Lane?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Rod? No. Thank you, Rod.
Well, I would like to thank you, and I thank you for your service to your community. I do have some destination guides that Metro produces and the latest Big Backyard that I could leave.
Great.
Front.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And we'll look forward to a tour.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rod.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to item 6 on the agenda, general business. Item 6A, PrAC goals update.
So with Chris gone this evening, he was coordinating the PrAC goals update, and so suggested that we might punt this to next month. And so we will, if agreed upon, move forward with that.
All right, any objections to that? Okay, very good. All right, item 6B. Buena Vista House, did I say it right?
Not according to some people. But,
You say tomato, I say tomato.
yeah, no, I'm Buena Vista, I like Buena
Buena
Vista.
is, yes.
Buena Vista, Buena Vista.
Buena is bueno.
I say Buena. You can also say Buena Vista.
Buna.
Yeah,
No
that's
such word.
the planning, the chair of the planning commission, unit.
Oh, yeah. So a little update on the Buena Vista House. We have been holding stakeholder meetings with that group, and we most recently had our second stakeholder meeting, which happened on April 16th. Our initial one was on March 19th. We also held a site tour and opened it up to this body as well, and had, I believe Lisa came out for that trip. We'll also go to Atkinson Park and the Buena Vista House on our June park visit. So we'll have plenty of opportunities to view that site and view that facility. So out of the second stakeholder meeting, we had a couple of items that we will, homework, as it were, for the group moving forward. The city's been working on getting estimates for the work that would be required. The building official wrote a memo for the city staff as well as the stakeholder group of the work that would be required if the house were to reopen to the public as a public meeting space. So using that letter, we've worked with a couple of different construction firms to visit the house, walk through, and provide a rough estimation of costs that would be required to get the house into a position where it could open up to the public as a public meeting space. We had one firm that came through, and we have received their estimate. The other two firms have walked the space, and we're waiting on an estimation, which should come in next week. Todd Eislin is working on a refined scope of work. So our scope of work we've been working off of is the letter from the building official and needing to open it as a public space. So that's a very, very, very rough scope of work that we've been working off of. Todd's working on a refined scope of work, which would include, some of the call outs of the specific things that would be required, ADA access, some structural work to beef up the foundation and the structural components attaching it. A lot of it's not attached properly. We have some electrical needs at the site, as well as some plumbing needs. The ADA restrooms would need to be improved, access and entry both into the building as well as the pathways entering into the building from the parking area. So he's working on that and is hoping to get a draft version of that back to staff next week. So we'll use that and make further refinements, and then try to get a couple of firms to come out and give estimates on what that cost would be. The other work that's currently happening is Denise McGriff and Bill Daniels, on behalf of the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, are coordinating with the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association as well as with the Oregon City Park Foundation to put together a working group to move forward with things like a vision and plan, work plan for what would be required to move forward with improvements to bring it up to a position where it could open to the public. Over the next couple of months, we would have a presentation to PrAC, and then have most likely a recommendation from this group to move forward to commission to either spend resources and commit additional time and energy into opening the house and doing all the work that would be required, knowing the cost estimates that we have, or some alternate plan of action moving forward. So trying to do this in a thoughtful way, but also knowing that we have two things working against us, time, and the house doesn't currently have utility hookups, and in addition, the commission giving direction to staff that they want to move forward with this one way or another.
Yeah, when something actually is happening to the house, do you have any idea where the funding will be coming from?
At this point, one of the things that I've communicated with the stakeholder group is we do not have funding as a park system. And so there will have to be alternate funding strategies, be it through grant or fundraising, or if it is a high enough priority for the city commission to find alternate funds in some capacity, but the Parks Department does not have the funding that would be required to move forward in any substantial
We don't have to
way.
worry about a city commission trying to use our SDCs then.
No, that would not be a funding source for this. And Karen was on that group. Karen, was there anything that I missed? And
Nope.
Roger, you were there as well.
Good summary.
So we will have probably a more substantial update at the next meeting, I'm hoping, knock on wood. And knowing that our June meeting is going to be our tour. So more than likely, we'd like to try to hit that May meeting.
Great, thank you. All right, item 6C, Willamette Falls Legacy Project.
Okay, so Willamette Falls Legacy Project. So as we discussed at the last meeting, the permitting apps have been signed by the owner. Staff has been moving forward with the joint permit application to the Army Corps of Engineers and DSL, as well as working on site work pertaining to the environmental things that will be needed, environmental studies, and some design standards for the site. So a lot of the work trying to get things refined before going into formal documents for construction, anything like that. So at this point, still working on rough kind of background work that needs to happen before we can really, shovels in the ground kind of work. We will receive anybody who's gone through a joint permit application process. You typically don't receive information back from that group until at least 6 to 9 months, a year later. And so trying to get this done in a thoughtful way and make sure that we don't have many pieces missing, so that we can get hopefully information back from that group as soon as possible in a way that works. So more information to come on that.
Okay. Very good. Item 6D, Ermitinger House.
So the Ermitinger House, we did receive, as you're aware, a direction from the City Commission to move forward with hiring a half-time FTE position to help manage the house and the operations. So we have posted that position, and as closed, we've conducted interviews and are very close to offering a position. So hopefully we'll have somebody on board by mid-May is our goal. We have a June 22nd, 23rd opening for the Oregon City Heritage Days event, which is the Rose Festival sanctioned event. And then we are planning on our grand opening event happening on July 7th, Saturday, July 7th. So very feverishly behind the scenes, working on trying to finalize the furniture plan and layout, the interpretive panels, trying to work with Mr. Neely on helping us out with our grand opening ceremonies. So a lot of excitement, a lot of build up to the event. We're very excited to get things going and have the house open and available to the public.
I will not be flipping a coin, however.
Thank you. You weren't part of it anyway.
Oh, well, they're going to have me there anyway. Are you sure? Are you sure I wasn't there?
There's no note.
That's not what I'm asking. Are you sure I wasn't there?
I'm not positive.
Okay.
My memory fails me. It's been a while since I was there.
I have a question, just in regards to the part-time position. Is that year-round or only through the summer?
Yeah, it's a year-round half-time FTE. We have not confirmed if we'll have any kind of shut down in slow periods or anything like that. We started with a base point of looking at the National Park Service and how they operate the McLaughlin House, which they're typically closed down for January, February, because it's a slower time typically. But it would be a position that we would be open for a majority of the year and definitely have enough work behind the scenes that even if we were closed for a slow period during the season, we could still have opening for school groups, or it would probably something that will be a little bit flexible with that timing. But at this point, we're planning on being open year round.
Great, thank you. All right, item 6E, citizen-initiated projects.
Yes. So I have a very, very short PowerPoint presentation. So this is something that that we've been having internal conversations with, and it's something that I've brought up with a few side conversations. We often get approached by our very dedicated, well-meaning citizen groups and community groups that want to improve our park system, and we very much want to work with them to improve the park system, but we have never really had a process for how to interface with those groups when they come and bring ideas to us and the things that they want to do. And so we reached out to a couple of different organizations, a couple of different agencies around the state to see how they interact with citizen groups and community organizations, and tried to develop a process. So we have a draft version that I'm going to hand out to you in just a minute, but I want to kind of walk through some of the current projects and some of the planned projects moving forward. There we go. So as you guys are aware, we have 38 parks and facilities, roughly 300 acres of parks in our system. A lot of those are, in neighborhoods, and everyone that uses our parks typically has a park either in their community that they really enjoy, or have a favorite park within the system that they really enjoy and want to see improvement. So we have many fans within our system. In addition to the parks, we also have facilities, including our Pioneer Community Center, the pool, the Ermitinger House, and the end of the Oregon Trail property. So some of the citizen-initiated projects that we're working on this current fiscal year, the Promenade Wall Cap project, which has been completed, the Cove Invasive Removal project, which is on urban renewal property, but as the land manager for the city and adjacent property owners at Clackamas Park, working very closely with that group on the Cove Invasive Removals, just on the other side of the bridge and near the Water Resource Center. Additional projects working on the Ladderette Park Phase 1 development, Ladderette Park, the Waterboard Park Invasive Removal project with the Park Foundation, and the Wesley Lynn scoreboard installation with Oregon City Youth Sports. So these are all projects that are primarily through the Oregon City Enhancement Grants. And that's a great program and a great way for us to have an impact using our budget in a way that makes the most sense using additional funds. So when we have these projects and we have a commitment from organizations, it makes a lot of sense for us to work with them, but it does include additional work, and it includes a lot of process around how to make that work happen and how to best incorporate resources from the city.
On the map, just out of curiosity, Barkley Hills Park is there. Is Barkley Hills the name of it? Barkley Hills Park?
Yes.
It looks like there's two parks there. Are they two? Are they part and parcel of the same park?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're not fully connected. There is the developed section of the park, and then there's additional natural area that's fine.
But I always visualize them as being connected, but they're not.
No. Yeah, they're not fully connected.
Bill?
Yes.
Just a quick question. The Promenade Wall Cap project is a citizen-initiated project? I thought that was just a kind of a warranty work.
It's kind of it was a little bit of a staff-initiated project, honestly. Okay. I did include it on here because it fell within the community enhancement grant application, so it was more of a staff-initiated project, and we worked closely with planning and Public Works to facilitate that. And the Wesley Lynn scoreboard, I guess I can give you a little update on where we're at with each of these. So the Promenade wall cap project is completed. That work was done primarily in the fall, and the wall caps are there and look great. The Wesley Lynn scoreboard installation, the boards are in. I have not been there recently, but I hear the boards are in, and there's a little bit of work on cleaning up the site still to be done to beautify the area. The Waterboard Park invasive removal, I've been working with the Park Foundation. We have received bids. We'll begin spraying this spring, probably within the next couple of weeks. They've done a ton of work on removing ivy around the trees so that we can spray the ground area and be as minimally invasive with the spraying technique, so without having to spray up into the tree canopy and having further damage to areas that we're trying not to spray. The Ladderette Park Phase 1 development, we have a deep-pave event happening in June, and we're doing some architectural and engineering work to figure out the access piece to the upper section of the park. And so we'll need, because of the grade change from the lower section to the upper section, we're going to have to do some access work, which was not fully developed during the initial grant process. And then the cove invasive removal is primarily done. They've done a lot of the rock work on the trails. We are still seeing a lot of encampments in that area still have coming out and doing some enforcement work actually this week. So these are the 2018-19 citizen-initiated projects that are anticipated. Go through these. The cove invasive removal project is an ongoing project, most likely reapplying for funds. The Oregon Trail Experience, working with Clackamas Heritage Partners at the end of the Oregon Trail property. The Buena Vista House Repair, which is an ongoing project and would depend on approval from the City Commission. Ladderette Park Phase 2 development, which would include installation of the play features, resurfacing of basketball courts, additional planting beds and beautification. The Waterboard Park invasive removal continuation, so that would be once we met with the contractors, they recommended that we do a multi-phase spraying process to make sure that we continue to knock back the invasives. So that would most likely include spraying in the fall, as well as another application the next fall. And then at the Promenade, we have two different projects. One is a wildflower project, which Bill Daniels and Jerry Herman have been working with the Museum of the Oregon Territory, the Rotary, and other organizations, McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, to knock down all of the weeds and grasses on the other side of the wall and do a application of wildflowers in that area. It's kind of a neat project they're working on, trying to get, it sounds like they have the Rotary signed on to do additional funding for seed application beyond this year. And so we'll have the original application, and then we'll have some reseeding efforts that will happen in the coming year. So the Promenade Planting Project is, Francesca has been working with the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association and city staff on doing a conceptual plan for the McLaughlin Promenade. Additionally, with that, the city was successful. The planning department, Kelly Reed, who's right now out on leave, but applied for a grant to do some survey work at the park. And so we were successful and received a $7,500 grant from the state to do some survey work at the Promenade. So we're very excited about that. And that will assist us in moving forward with the planning project as well, provide some additional information as we move forward. So with all of the requests that we do get from citizen groups, again, it's something that we were wanting to make sure that we had a process of how to evaluate and make sure that we were kind of the groups that were applying for assistance from resources, whether it's city staff or a monetary match, that it was vetted out a little bit. So I'm going to hand out a draft version of our application and that we'll start using in the coming months as we receive interest from community groups or citizens that want to make improvements at our parks. It'll just make sure that it is vetted a little bit more, that it's a refined thought process, and that we're not missing anything along the way, both as staff or the community organizations that are requesting assistance from city. So the pieces it goes through is, is that something that you're looking at a specific site? What type of space do you need? What is your budget? Do you anticipate ongoing operations and maintenance? How will that be facilitated? And so there's a process for them to kind of go through and think about all of those pieces. Some of the agencies that have used it have said that it's been a very easy and well thought through process, and it helps the groups to really hone their proposal before they come to the city. And then additionally, as you're moving forward, helps you to make sure there's no miscommunication or misunderstandings between the two groups.
I'm going to make a request.
Yes.
Because we've been involved in it with Greater Oregon City Watershed has been involved in the Abernathy Creek Park for years.
One more project.
And so, so we're an existing group that's been working, and I'd like to see an arrow.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I should have. See, you guys do such a good job of coordinating everything. I don't even have to think about it too much. So we're lucky to have Doug Neely on board to help coordinate that. Yes.
Actually, our coordinator coordinates Rita Baker. We do get the team out there.
Yeah.
Great work on and actually, if it's hand invasive species removal, the Oregon City Junior ROTC is a great group.
Oh yeah.
They do really good work. We filled up a whole dumpster this last a weekend ago.
Oh really? Wow. Yeah. So
planning zoning in the fall.
Wow. Yeah, and working on another grant through Greater Oregon City Watershed Council, and Rita has been fantastic and helping to write letters of support for our grants, and so a lot of this is this is all good work, and it's all things that we want to be able to do. It's just looking for a way to help streamline the process a little bit and make sure that there's no miscommunication and that we have a plan in place moving forward. So we're anticipating starting to use this. If you see things that you don't think make sense, or if you think could be changed or tweaked, feel free to send me revisions through email. I'd be happy to hear them.
Great, thank you.
You're missing our planting down on the Waterboard Park too.
Yes, yeah, see, we have so many, yes.
Although we're getting close to being finished with this, so.
Okay, item 6F on the agenda, Mount View Cemetery Grant.
Yes, so Mountain View Cemetery Grant, staff are attempting to move forward with a grant application to make some improvements in the Masonic and Old Cemetery sections of the cemetery. There we go. So they're anticipating making repairs of 21 headstones within the cemetery. The grant applications process closes soon, and so the request from staff is to authorize the chair or vice chair to write a letter of support for the process. And so, if you are willing to offer that support, I would greatly appreciate it. If maybe we can have a motion and a vote.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we write a letter of support for the, it's actually the State Parks Historic Cemeteries grant that staff is working on an application to.
Second?
Any objections?
I guess technically I am supposed to actually call roll on these now, so I will call roll. Dashler?
Aye.
Mitchell?
Aye.
Novak?
Aye.
Neely?
Aye.
Maureen?
I,
Fowler Tice?
Aye.
And motion passes. Thank you.
and I can help with wording if anybody needs that.
Okay. Item 6G, Library Park.
So a couple different pieces on that. So as you're aware, I sent out an email to the group. The City Commission approved the name change from Carnegie Library Park to Library Park. So as of April 18th, it is now Library Park again. With that, we have a couple of signs that are going up on 7th Street and 6th Street on John Adams. The 7th Street signage will state Oregon City Public Library in larger block, and then in smaller block will say Carnegie Library and Library Park. The signage on 6th and John Adams will say Library Park. In addition to the large signage for the park, as we went through the naming subcommittee, it was a recommendation that we look at additional interpretive displays that would be in the park that would tell a little bit of the history of the park space, the library, how things kind of came together, the recognition of the contributions of John McLaughlin, as well as Andrew Carnegie in a way that made sense. And so I believe that came up. I think Doug brought that up and wanted that as one of the pieces as we're having the conversation for the official name change and recommendation to the City Commission. I think that's a great idea, and I was been working with the library director, Maureen Cole, as well as her working with her library board on a way to make that happen. We had a gentleman who passed away recently, and his family contacted us to see if there was an opportunity to place a park bench in the park. And if you spend any amount of time at that park, it is full of park benches, and they're well benched, yes. But with knowing that we had an opportunity for interpretive panel at the site, we recommended that, hey, maybe we do something a little different, and instead of a memorial bench, we do a memorial interpretive panel. And so in memory of this gentleman, Carl Platt, doing an interpretive display which tells a little bit about the history of the site. His wife was very happy about that recommendation and sent out notification with all of his family and friends, and they've been receiving donations to move forward with an interpretive sign. We've got a little bit of a bank built up on that, and we think we're pretty close to being able to pull the trigger on that as an organization. So speaking with Library Director Cole, we talked about the process of setting up a committee to look at the signage. So what it would say, what it would be. And so she has an individual from the library board that is committed to working on this subcommittee. And I would ask if we might have a volunteer from this group that would be interested in helping with that as well.
How fast can this hand shoot up? Oh, yes. I've given Mo a lot of information on the history of the park, but unless somebody else is chomping at the bit, I would love to be on that committee.
Great.
Please do.
I like that.
Excellent. So I have Karen down to assist on that project. So we'll probably come back with an update at the next month, but we'll start moving forward with planning that out. So thank you very much, Karen.
Great. Item 6H, other general business. I think we had a note regarding Filbert Run and the natural resource overlay.
Yes, so Mr. Neely asked if we can add this item, so I'll turn it over to Doug to kind of walk us through. And I'm going to put the visual up on the board so that we can see what we're talking about. And I think,
I was hoping to get another map of this. There's actually a
something like that.
Yeah, this is it.
There we go.
I was gonna say Pete's got some more.
Tom on many occasions has mentioned that there is a misapplication of the natural resource overlay on this particular park.
Well, it sure is.
Yeah.
This here is the overlay that was put here, and this is the one.
The green line.
The stream actually, which is an intermittent stream during stormwater events, comes down into this area here, and then it flows into what is this a stormwater outfall? Yes. It's a stormwater outfall that when the stormwater in the pipe is too great, it bubbles up here and then goes back into the stormwater system down here. This area is heavily incised. You'll see little stripes going down here, which in some places these are, looks like where it's water is running off developments and coming into the system.
Doug?
Yes.
Make more red.
Nothing is wrong with your
Using the wrong pen?
No.
Anyway, so the overlay is in the wrong spot, and when the Natural Resource Committee actually put in its letter of recommendation, we actually brought up that point to see what can be done, particularly in terms perhaps some vegetation and it would not be trees and so forth. This is an intermittent stream, but vegetation that would work in this area, but also dealing with this heavily incised area here and whether there's some way to slow down the water and that goes through that system and that incises it. When we take our tour of the parks, you'll probably see that, and it's a problematic. So Tom brought this up on several occasions. I know that.
It was 8 years ago that it was going to be changed on the maps.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing is that maybe. I will tell you the city applied for a grant this year to Metro to actually fund looking at these maps one more time, but they also sent in 2 other grant requests, and I think it went on to the bottom of the stack as far as Metro is concerned. But the point is, when we have the capability of doing some of these things piecemeal, and in terms of us working on Filbert Run in particular, maybe we can get this piece corrected and actually do the kinds of things that these overlays are intended to do.
This ephemeral swale.
There are hundreds of.
The water, I'll tell you, when you have a storm event there's a lot of water coming through it, even though it's for a very short period of time.
Since that overlay was adopted in 2008, there have been numerous development applications where they do an on-site delineation, and the buffer that we apply is based on the on-site delineation when a site plan or a subdivision comes through. But
we don't have a subdivision coming here.
No, but what would be the next steps for implementation of the park if the grant funding comes through?
Yeah, so the timeline of implementation falls roughly within the 5-year period. So
Right.
Pete was stating that typically the delineation reports from the state are good for about 5 years, and it was done in 2015. We're anticipating if we receive funds to move forward with Filbert Run that we would probably have construction completed in the summer of 2020, which puts us about 6 months past where that period of time is for we received the letter from them January 12th, 2015. So the report that we received from them is what you see on your screen, which I'm going to mispronounce this, ephemeral, thank you, the ephemeral swale that goes through the park. And as Doug noted, the overlay that we have in our GIS system does not match with the actual water coming through the park. But the ephemeral swale that we did receive the delineation from the state, which is the report that you see in front of you, is in the proper location. So in addition to that, we had, see if I can full screen. So we have, so this was on the master plan for the park, the conceptual master plan, which additionally calls out the more correct location of the swale, as well as shows the 15-foot vegetative corridor that would be required through our city code. So we're anticipating that we would have to have a corridor in that area. That's part of the plan and would be part of the construction if we move forward. But definitely making sure that we can work with our GIS system to make sure that the overlay on our maps is at least noted for when they do have the funding available to make those improvements, that it is made appropriate.
Very good. Any other questions or comments regarding Filbert Run?
I do have one question. The grant timing for Filbert Run
Yes.
to the state park?
Yeah, so the grant has been submitted. It's currently in the review process. The city staff would go to make a presentation. I believe it's in early June. We would make the presentation, typically find out within the month. And so by the end of June, beginning of July, we would probably have notification from the state if we were successful. Typically, they would then come back and have us sign off on an agreement with them, which happens in early fall. And then we have 2 years from the timing of signing off on the agreement to have the construction completed. So we would anticipate again, so that would be notification in fall of 2018, construction completed by summer of 2020.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any other general business? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I have two. Generally, at the beginning of the meeting, we kind of would address members that aren't present, and we've got 3 out, so I just thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, and my apologies. So Chris is not able to be here tonight. He's not feeling well. He's ill. Troy had a work meeting and was not able to be here, and Bill is out of town on vacation and not able to be here. And they all did notify me in advance.
Yeah. Great. And then the next topic, could you touch a little bit on the news this week of the maintenance facility?
Yes.
Specifically, and how that would interact with what's already kind of in the works with our current upgrade.
Yeah.
That facility.
Yeah, so as for those of you that might not be aware, we, as a city, the city commission approved a purchase and sales agreement to acquire a property off of Fur that is just under 5 acres of total property, the purchase price of $7.1 million. The property was purchased primarily for public works, but it's a large facility and would also have the ability to provide operations space for the park operations staff. And so knowing that, we've been looking for a permanent home for the park's operations staff as well. That's one particular point that the commission was pretty excited about, and something that honestly we're pretty excited about as staff is the opportunity of having more efficiencies. And the property itself has tanks for both diesel and gas, and so we could fuel up all the rigs at the same site as where all the vehicles are at. We would have ample storage space, very large warehouse spaces that are located there. We'd also have some efficiencies with conference rooms, break rooms, some equipment use, things like that. So a lot of efficiencies. There are a couple of things that we would have to kind of shift the way that we currently do work. Having the cemetery space be our primary, our largest park, 55, 56 acres, and needing to do burials. And so having staff that often are timed around the lunch period, where we would have staff come in, eat lunch, and then afterwards go and assist with burials. And so we have some efficiencies there with the program elements. Additionally, having the operations staff at one site and the customer service admin support staff at the cemetery that would need to be there to provide those services for those looking to bury their loved ones. And so there's a little bit of a give and take. And so we're working through the process with the park staff as well as with the public works staff to figure out a way to make that happen. We envision that we will most likely move forward with kind of shifting gears and move the operations staff to the joint public works parks operations center. The work that was put into planning for the park operations maintenance area at the cemetery. We have that additional space now, which we will still need to do some additional storage space for the cemetery eventually. Additionally, we'll still have to make updates and upgrades to our office space there at some point. And so the additional space that was recently purchased, the 1 acre space, will allow us to build a new office and storage space at the cemetery without interfering with the current ongoing operations. Having an additional place to build while we're still operating. One of the concerns we had as staff was that we still have the out-of-date restrooms that are on the site, and is of particular concern to us. And so we envision, the details have not been worked out, but if we do end up being able to move over to the First Street property, that we would still move forward with the demolition of the current red tag building and reconstruction of the restrooms on site. We probably would not do any other construction work or expansion of parking spaces, things like that at that site until a later date. But any of the funds that we were putting into the operations center at the cemetery would then shift over to the operations center on First Street. But we have 60 days due diligence period. We're a couple weeks in at this point, and so things could change. It seems like a solid building and a solid property, but it's not a done deal just yet. So more information to come on that, definitely.
Great. Thank you.
I have a question, and I don't know if this is a proper time to talk about this. I was going to talk about it in my member comment, and that is that we weren't allowed to talk about the whole business because of litigation with the lower part of Waterloo Park. And I don't recall anybody coming to talk to us about that at all prior to the litigation.
Okay.
And although that wasn't, it came out in the court, but prior to that it didn't, nobody knew if it was park property or city property, but it would have affected the park in that some of the parking spots people use in front of the armory would have been gone. And as far as I know, the only parking would have been up on top of the hill, right?
So the current parking down below, the park actually doesn't have any parking down below. It's either on Public Works property or it's on State of Oregon property for the armory. The proposal by Public Works for their operations center would have included a small trailhead at the bottom, so there would have been like 4 or 5 spaces.
I wasn't trying to get into the details.
Oh yeah, no.
But I guess what I was saying was that we weren't. Even though I know it's a whole separate thing, we weren't involved in any kind of discussion. And according to our bylaws, we're here for public comment and anything that might affect the park. And I'm wondering if is that something that that the chair and the vice chair would be included in meetings with this, with the city on that, or is,
that was litigation, and the lawyers actually took care of most of it. There's really not a lot of input from park staff in relation to that. It was, all, through the legal process, so.
well, I guess what I'm getting at is that this planning has been going on for quite a while. How long?
For the new public works facility, came as a surprise.
Well, no, it's not. I'm sorry.
General Distributors sold to Columbia Distributing. Columbia
No.
doesn't want the facility.
No, I'm talking about Lower Waterford Park.
Well, the point is, it wasn't a park, and that's
Right.
right.
Well, I understand, but nobody knew that until the court said that. Is that quite right?
The court case wasn't a secret, it's been in the works.
No, but
no.
it was litigated, but the city commission had never, in the whole history of it, dedicated that area for a park.
Right, I understand, but it didn't come out until the court.
But the court, but that's because the city was taken to the court.
Well,
So I would
I'm
say
sorry.
to-
I guess what I'm getting at is anything around the park affects anything going on around the park affects the park. So is that not something that PrAC should be aware of? And somebody come and talk to PrAC about what the plans are?
Well, what I was going to suggest, I think his point is there. Assuming the due diligence and so forth of the First Street property comes into being, I think there should be a community discussion on that area above the public works side. And because I presume most of our operations are going to, they probably have a presence there, but I think it would be beneficial then to have that discussion after the city commission has made its decision on the First Street, and I think that's what you're implying.
Right. It's just that the planning for that the operation, when they were planning on building it down here, has been going on for a little while, a few years. And we have never been, nobody's ever come here.
I will tell you the Natural Resource Committee was involved in it, but I guess the PrAC was not.
This is just in case other parks
that's
are
good.
like this, that have been around for a while, that's all.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I would say that, moving forward, I can try to keep this group more informed of development near the parks. So as we have development coming on board that is adjacent to park facilities, if it seems to be an impact of that experience for park users, I can probably try to do a better job of informing the group.
Well, and I can almost reassure you, every other park so far that I've looked up has a deed restriction or a dedication. What the water board, the city-owned property in which Waterboard Park sits is the only exception I have found.
Yeah, so we will be at some point in the near future coming forward with additional information on recognizing charter parks in a more formal way. So many of the park sites have dedications, either through the purchase process or through adoption by commission or dedication by the plat map. And so there's ways that it is delineated as charter protected, but not necessarily called out as a charter park. And so we are going through. I think we brought this up a couple of meetings ago. We're going through a process of looking at every city-owned property in our system and detailing, do we have the deed? When was it platted? What is the delineation between? We have some that abut city property with park dedicated property, and so there's a lot of wiggle room, a lot of gray area on some of our facilities. Being an older community, we have some things that we need to get refined a little bit. So at some point in the near future, we'll be coming back to this group to kind of lay out, here's what we have. This is the process we're going to have moving forward. We have some parks that'll be pretty easy to move forward and have an adoption by the commission as charter parks, and we have a few that will have to do a little bit more legwork. But so it'll be a little bit of a drawn-out process.
I'm going to throw out something. As the development of the east side of the cove goes forward, it hasn't yet, but as it goes forward, that area will only have one owner at that point. There is a device called a local improvement district. And if we could get the owner to agree to having some monthly charge to so we can have continuous maintenance of the land around the cove, that will come back to the city. I think it already belongs to the city. Maintenance, I mean, we take in these great places that have a lot of natural features that are great, but we do not have the funds to maintain them. And if the possibility exists to have that area as a local improvement district where the people occupying those apartments pay $5 a month or something of that nature into the local improvement district to actually do the maintenance around the cove.
I will definitely follow up on that.
Local improvement district?
Yep.
Okay. All right, any other general business?
Yeah, I didn't know when the right time was to bring up the property owned by the city that
Within
which whatever we want to call that. But now that Doug already broke the ice, I just want to say amen to what he said. It's a tremendous opportunity, not only in terms of the parking area that's there, but the armory. What's the future of the armory building? And I know when Jerry Herman has spoken to us about all the geological aspects of Waterboard Park, and does that become a geological learning center? You know, there's just all kinds of possibilities, assuming that the due diligence goes forward and all that comes together. I just want to put my support into what Doug was saying, that this group needs to lead the charge in planning for that area, because it's a tremendous opportunity.
And I will say also that for those that weren't at the city commission meeting, the mayor stated that he would prefer the city not look at doing anything with the upper yard space until within a year's period. Not to say that that's exactly how it will happen, but that is his preference, is that we wait a little bit and then reassess.
And keeping in mind that the court decision is that the upper yard is not part of the park.
We understand.
And the armory belongs to the state. And the armory is currently closed because it was closed when all the other armories were closed for lead. So
My understanding, it might not be still current, was that the state was going to clean that up and then wanted to essentially hand it off to the city.
there's a lot of rumor that I'm not sure how much fact there is.
Yeah, and I haven't been involved in those conversations.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, as far as the land use aspect goes, the Public Works Master Plan application expired because it was incomplete for some time. They'd come and shared it with various groups before they applied for land use application. So you saw a lot of the conceptual layouts, and then they applied, but there were various reports that were needed in order to be able to review it properly. And because of various reasons, the lawsuits, et cetera, the timing of that didn't happen. So they will be coming back and applying again for a detailed development plan and an amendment to the original master plan in order to be able to do anything. Yeah. And at that point, there'll be further public engagement.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Anything else? General business? Okay. All right, moving on. Item 7 on our agenda, member reports. Sean, would you like to start?
I have nothing.
Nothing, okay.
All I have is a quick question for Phil. How are the name suggestions coming in?
Yeah, we have, last I checked, 380-ish.
Really?
Wow.
Well, 380 individual submissions. I'd say we probably have about 12 different names.
That's terrific.
Okay, how do we campaign, Sean?
How many different ways can you spell your name? It keeps entering it in.
So that is still open, so it'll be open to the public to offer up a name suggestion until May 31st. So you can go on
A good way to go with public involvement.
Yeah, that's true. I'm thrilled
Yeah.
at that amount of involvement. That's just great. That's terrific.
Our new
They're not through
communications.
land trusts or anything like
This
that.
is, this is Glen Oak specifically.
Yeah, so that's for the Glen Oak property. Our communications coordinator's done a great job of getting some good graphics out there and doing some social media pushes. So it's been a good
Yeah,
process.
and it's working.
as well.
I've noticed that what she talked about last month, I follow the city's Facebook page, and I've noticed how she kind of calculates when she puts things out. It seems effective, at least from my experience with social media.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Speaking on me, I attended Enhancement Day, Oregon City Enhancement Day. I did a lot of weeding. But it was really a great turnout. It was a lot of fun and really proud to be a part of the Promenade Project and Enhancement Day. So thanks to everyone who turned out and great job, everyone.
I was just going to say that the Greater Oregon City Watershed again on that day was involved there at the Abernathy Creek Park. We do not go in for the food because we want our people to work and we bring the food out to the park. So we bring out pizza for the workers at 12 o'clock and we have a little bit of fruit there, but they started work at 8:30.
Did you get rained on?
No,
I don't know, it was weird.
no, actually, it was good. It wasn't.
It was like we got out of there just in time.
As I said, they filled a whole dumpster full of invasives.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great. Great. All right.
Well, I have an invitation. You won't have to do any work. This Saturday, April 28th at 10 a.m. at Mountain View Cemetery, the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War will be doing a memorial ceremony. Their ceremony is an adaptation of the original Grand Army of the Republic ceremony. They will have a Civil War era brass band, and they will be doing a musket volley in honor of those who served our country. And this is kind of an honor. It's the Northwest annual encampment of the Sons of the Union Veterans of the Civil War. So I'm having trouble getting that. I actually had trouble typing it on Facebook the other day, and Mayor Holliday called and told me I didn't know how to type. Said somehow Civil War turned into oil war.
Well,
I was very happy he was proofreading my posts.
That would be
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
That would be a good thing for the city's communications director to put out on the Facebook page way ahead of time, because I have not seen that.
And if I hadn't gotten distracted, I was going to get it to Kristen. So that's my fault.
What day is that again?
This Saturday.
Oh, this Saturday.
And there was a request if Dr. McLaughlin wanted to be there. But
The McLaughlin Memorial Association has its meeting this coming Saturday.
Oh, okay. Well, and I did point out he would have known a lot of the veterans, but he wouldn't have been around when they were serving.
I was going to say, he was dead.
That was what I was pointing out.
1857.
Okay. Roger?
Rough crowd.
Well, So I had some Pioneer updates. Tax season has come to a close with over 400 tax returns completed by volunteers for Clackamas County residents. Gift bags and thank you cards were given out to honor volunteers who work in the kitchen for National Volunteer Recognition Week. We held a very successful transportation fair and are looking forward to repeat this in the fall. At this time, our trips are full, our day trips are full, as well as the classes we offer. On to Oregon City Parks Foundation. Our Promenade Park project is coming along. We have 309 plants of the 400 in the ground now. And we were planting a bunch last Saturday. That's why I missed your event. So I was hoping to go down there and get in the water.
We did do that.
But we're getting some really good responses from people walking by, encouragement, and everybody's interested in see what's happening.
Okay.
And excited about it, which is good. On the Waterboard Park project, as mentioned earlier, we have 2 bids in, and I'm hoping we can get going on that real quick before the spring is over. That's it.
I'd point out, if you got into the water at the park we were working at, you wouldn't have been able to get out of it. The slopes are too steep.
All right, item 8, staff reports.
Okay. So the recreation reports were emailed to you by Denise earlier this week. The McLaughlin Kima Trail, just wanted to officially notify everyone that the second reading of the ordinance passed on April 4th. So both the interim and the permanent trail alignments have been set. And staff will be working on trying to determine next steps for the interim trail piece, which should be an ongoing process over the next couple of years.
Can I ask a question? We've got apparently that trail going along McLaughlin and the permanent trail too.
Mm-hmm.
Jersey barriers are really ugly. It'd be nice if there was, I mean, we obviously need a barrier there to separate the the pedestrians from the traffic, but we ought to make it something that is attractive.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that was brought up during the process as well. So I think that will be one of the things that staff will work with ODOT to try to make sure that we have something that's safe, but also isn't an eyesore.
But ODOT sounded like they had some alternatives that they could look at, so.
Well, like even the dividers that they've put on middle of 205 would be more attractive than the New Jersey barrier. You know, at least you can see through the cable thing that they're doing.
Paint them, we could make them art.
Yeah. Are there any other questions on the trail piece? Okay, I have another couple that I did not put on that I forgot to say earlier. So with the enhancement grants, Bill asked if I would ask the group to please allow the chair to write a letter of support for his grant specifically for the wildflower project at the promenade. And I told him that I would do that for him. But I think it might be, so we went through a couple of different options of enhancement grants, folks that were interested in applying for enhancement grants, that maybe the group would recommend that the chair is allowed to write letters for any of those enhancement grants if they do ask the chair to write that. So we're assigning homework to Chris without him being here. But if maybe we could have a motion for that.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Looks like Karen wants to discuss.
I'm a little curious. I've sat through lots and lots of enhancement grants, as has he. They wouldn't always necessarily meet our goals. So giving free rein to, I trust Chris's judgment, but I'm curious how, I wouldn't be in favor of giving him full authority to write one for anybody that wants one. I think we need a process for everyone to kind of see what they are.
I would say, I guess, for the ones that we've discussed at the meeting tonight. So I'm not sure if there's other applicants that are planning to move forward with enhancement grants, but if of the ones, and if you have concerns over any of them, we can make another motion.
I would limit it to the waterflower. It wasn't that one down there. To the wildflower one at this point. And would you?
Would they be park related? Is that what we're looking for?
But you don't know who's writing them and what they're asking for.
So I made the motion technically. Let's clarify what the two or three are.
Yeah, so we have the ones that are moving forward or attempting to move forward. We have the wildflower seeding at the promenade. We have the planning at the promenade, which would be a larger kind of conceptual plan on what to do with that space. We have the Ladderette Park project, phase 2, which would include the access and the nature play elements. We have a Oregon Trail Experience, which is in partnership with the Clackamas Heritage Partners at the end of the Oregon Trail property. Had the map. We also have.
It was all the ones on that slide.
Yeah. So those are the ones.
So to clarify my motion, it would include everything on the slide as presented earlier, because I would support each of those
I'm more
projects.
comfortable with that.
Okay.
Great. So we have a motion and a second, unless there's further discussion.
All in favor?
I have to do a roll call.
Oh, that's right again.
So close.
Katie has you reached.
I know, it's slow, it's sinking in. So Daschler?
Aye.
Mitchell?
Aye.
Novak?
Aye.
Neely?
Aye.
Maury?
Aye.
Fowler Tice?
Aye.
Great, motion passes. Thank you so much. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring up is the not next month, but the month after, in June, we're planning our park tour. We're working on, we have the bus lined up. We have John will be there to be our tour guide. And I did let him know that I would be offering up, if you have recommendations of parks that you definitely want to go to, or you definitely don't want to go to, or themes of parks that you want to go to, please let me know. Send me an email. We're going to be drafting an itinerary, and we can send out a draft version after we receive some feedback from the group. And my hope is to have, within the next month, have that lined up so that we have a firm tour itinerary.
Question?
I'm going to make a request. Obviously, there are some parks we're going to concentrate on, but I do believe I've seen every park, but I don't know that we all have, and it's been a while. I think it should include at least a drive-by of all.
I was going to say, when you're doing historic preservation or you're doing assessments, there's what's called a drive-by assessment. So maybe we could decide that some parks could be a drive-by assessment and some need to be boots on the ground.
There are things that, for example, we've got Shenandoah Park in a neighborhood very close to me. It's got this. It's got this concrete base that I'm sure had a picnic table on it. There's nothing there now. It's a nice park. It's got trees and so forth. But I think it'd be a good idea to see what is there, and they can be drive-by assessments.
Okay.
And if, as we're driving by, if somebody knows the park and some features they want to talk about as we're driving by them, I think it would be great.
Quick look out the window that way.
So I have drive-by versus stop and talks.
Have them both.
And that's been typical in the past, where some of those pocket parks, for example, it's kind of explained, well, this piece of grass that looks like a home lot is a park, but we just kind of talk about it in passing while we're eating our sandwich.
I think we did that with Ladderette Park. We did that sort of thing.
It's kind of easy to take in quickly, but it's going to be better.
All right. Any future agenda items?
Wow.
Nothing? Nothing? Okay.
It's not here.
Updates.
All right. Next scheduled meeting is Thursday, May 24th, 2018 at 7 p.m. And if there are no other questions or comments, this adjourns our meeting for this evening. Thank you.